Homestead. My name is Adam, and I thought we'd chat for a bit. So the other day, Justin Rhodes put out a video, and I'm assuming most of you who are following us here would know who he is. For those of you who don't, he is a very well-established and well-known YouTuber and permaculture homesteader who a lot of us look to for inspiration, guidance, ideas, instruction. And anyway, so he's definitely the type of guy, if you have a question about this, that you ask him. And the question that had been posed to him multiple times really was from couples. One person in a relationship wants to do this homesteading life, but the other isn't as interested in it. How do you convince them? And his answer was pretty simple: is you don't, right? And this is 100% true. Got me thinking about my journey here and how I got here. And quite honestly, it's been a few days here with helping my neighbors and everything with their cows and getting calves and everything like that. And I turned to him and I said, like 3 years ago, I'm doing stuff that 3 years ago I wouldn't have ever imagined doing. My life is completely different from what it was and what in the very, not that long ago, what I was expecting it to be. So, I started thinking about my story with it, right? Like, how did I get to the place where I'm at now? Where, we're really out in the middle of nowhere here. Our closest town and grocery store is half an hour away. Closest Walmart is an hour away. So that's how far out we are here. And so it's quite the journey to get here. And it got me thinking way back even into my childhood. This was never a dream of mine until very recently. It got me thinking of my first time really being around anything farm-like. It was a friend of my dad. His mother had a small hobby farm. And I was probably about 10, 11, and we went out to visit it. And I remember I was old enough to look at it and say, wow, this place is pretty awesome. Like, it's beautiful. It seems this ideal. It was my first time ever being on anything close to a farm. It was my first time, bottle feeding a calf. Like, these are, a few things that I remember about this little trip. But I remember coming away from it and thinking, wow, that seems pretty perfect, but how could you do it? How can you afford to just do this and, still feed yourself? And so I put it out of my mind. Like, it's not something that I'd ever be doing. I was a city boy. I was going to be, going to school, getting a job, working that 9 to 5, and that's how the next 30 years of my life went, That was my first real kind of touch on anything resembling this lifestyle. But it did leave an impression. So anyway, the rest of my life goes on. Thought of this sort of thing never really entered into my consciousness for a long time. Got married to Caroline, started having kids. Our jobs were going okay, our businesses were going okay, and then Caroline, I think, was the one who really introduced me to some other YouTubers, the Hollar Homestead, and about their journey. And how much they sacrificed and gave up, selling their home and packing most of their stuff, packing up into a trailer, and touring around the United States looking for a place to set up their own homestead. And I didn't really watch much of that, but she finally got me watching it once they'd bought their homestead and bought their farm, and started getting that set up. And that got me thinking, like this is kind of what we're thinking of, what we're looking at. Like we'd been looking at, sustainable housing. We'd been thinking about, with the price of housing where we were living, it'd be easier to buy raw land and then build an airship, we were thinking at one point, and go from there. That would be a way to have a home for our kids and for our family. But watching them do what they did, it soon became a thing that, wasn't just a really cool idea and something we enjoyed watching. It was something that we really wanted to be doing. But it was still scary, right? My job was stapled to where we were. Caroline's wasn't. I am definitely a creature of comfort and, prefer the familiar. So it'd be a big leap for me to get to that point. But it soon came to a point where, we were looking at it and saying, well, okay, you know what? This is what we want to do. In 5 years, we want to be saving up enough money for down payment and get going. And with these incredible examples before us, how could we fail? There's so many people have done it before us and shown that it can be done. We just have to buckle up and figure out where and how to do it. Still wasn't fully committed to it myself, though. It was one of those things that was far off. It was in the 5-year plan, but 5-year plans become 10-year plans and things like that, depending on how jobs go and life goes and families go. It was one of those things that was nice to talk about and dream about and even plan about, but it was more just the mental exercise rather than the actual planning and doing. It took a couple more years for that to change. So how did that change, right? How did I go from being a city guy working in facilities and maintaining a university campus to, a stay-at-home dad setting up a homestead, walking with a sled full of hay or straw to bring into my barn through 2 feet of snow in the middle of March to make sure my chickens and goats stay warm. It is definitely a drastic shift. And again, like I said, it was one that we'd put into our 5-year plan, something that we'd like to be doing, but as far as I was concerned, wasn't something that we'd ever actually be able to do. And then, as things changed with, my work and everything, and, my prospects there, and my prospects of moving somewhere else and staying in the industry that I knew, it quickly became apparent that, it's not something I was happy doing anymore and needing the change. And with the onset of the pandemic, the stresses and everything that put on and the break it gave me from doing the work, made me realize that, I really don't want to go back to it. And let's initiate the process and roll the dice and see what happens. And so we did. It's finally, make the choice, make the decision to actually do it and figure out how to make it work. It was a mad scramble over the course of a couple of weeks in October of 2020 that got us to where we're at now. Some fortune and favor to land us here on our farm that we own. We got here and got our rental, and we're making ends meet, but just barely. But it was a whole process and a whole lot of emotion and stress and anxiety and everything like that I'm still working through. It is not easy to do this, but it is absolutely the right thing for us to be doing. Back to Justin's video is, the only thing you can do is kind of expose people to this, and either they like it or they're not interested. And I liked what I was seeing. I liked the exposure we were getting through other people like us doing this to show that how it can be done and what we can do about it. And that's why we're here, trying to pay it forward to, the next set of people who might be, looking at property prices in the city and looking at, just how fragile the food supply is and how easy it is to disrupt certain things that you're used to having all the time, and reevaluating what's important and what it is you're willing to give up to live a more sustainable life. growing your own food and having that security and having that capability to take care of yourself and your loved ones. I'm not afraid of doing the hard work. And you know, a lot of it I'm still figuring it out as I go. But we're here, we're trying it. And the biggest challenge really was just taking that first step. I mean, once you're on the road, you're on the road. May as well get to the end of it. And so that's what we did. And that's why we're here. They love getting their fresh bedding. So I've got a few more loads to do with this, but you know, I just wanted to leave you with, you know, it's a journey, and it's not always easy to get to. Like I said, it took me years, but the seeds were planted when I was very young. You know, and anybody who's open to watching and learning about this sort of thing, just like Justin said, expose them to the stuff that's fun, expose them to the stuff that they might be interested in. And then you let them learn more about it. You know, if your significant other doesn't really want to do this, there's no point in sacrificing your relationship as a result. But if both of you are on board, it's an incredible, exciting, scary journey, but it's totally worth it. Anyway, so tell me what you think. Tell me, you know, would you and your significant other, if you could, would you do this too? Let us know down below. We'd love to read about it. Anyway, thank you for spending your time with me today. We appreciate you, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks.